What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video I will be detailing the 10 best exotic primary weapons in Destiny 2. Full disclosure, I'm ranking these weapons a few weeks before Christmas, so any sandbox changes that happen between now and then I'm not responsible for. Destiny is an ever-evolving game, so metas are always changing. Bungie is always tweaking things, and outliers often get buffed or nerfed to become relevant or irrelevant. For instance, last year's #1 weapon in Quicksilver Storm doesn't even make the list this year. Believe me, I'm just as surprised as you, but with the way the sandbox has evolved since the final shape, I just don't see it being nearly as dominant as it once was, even though it's still a pretty decent weapon. As for other weapons that got tuned up to become great, Wishender is still a monster ever since its rework. And to me, that is what makes Destiny fun and keeps things fresh, getting to play in an ever-evolving sandbox. I do also want to clarify that this is a ranking for PvE only. PvP viability is not really considered. This list was honestly the hardest of the 3 weapon types to make just because there's so many amazing exotic primaries. But I think my reasoning for the top 10 holds true, and we'll see if you agree. The other thing to note is that this list is based off how strong the weapon is by itself. I know Malfeasance is great with Lucky Pants and still a pretty solid weapon on its own, but yeah, this is looking at the weapon on its own if you strip down your build and we're just using it to take out enemies without help from anything else. So with those disclaimers out of the way, let's kick off this list with the number 10 best primary in Verve Curve. Now, I know we are in a stasis heavy season, but there are no bow artifact perks on the artifact. Regardless, this thing is still a monster. Being an exotic bow, it is great at one-tapping enemies even in Grandmaster content, and then you can shoot crystals, which makes up for the biggest downside of bows, the lack of ad clear. Not to mention shatter damage deals great single target damage, as well as nice AoE for groups of ads. Then you pair in the stasis synergy that being able to make crystals can provide, and you have a very strong utility weapon. Hell, it was even used in strats to solo Athum. It's just a very good weapon overall. At number 9 we have Polaris Lance. It has fallen out of favor since its dominance in Season of the Wish thanks to artifact mods, but it doesn't change the fact that it can still cause ignitions in just 10 crit shots, and ignitions are extremely powerful. They can clear out entire groups of enemies and even stunlock bosses, and this is one of the most consistent weapons in the game for proccing ignitions. You can also lay on the trigger and never have to reload as long as you are hitting crits, and we all know how much I hate reloading. So it's just a great single target damage weapon for a primary. Add in the fact that you have good solar synergy with it, and I think it's still deserving of a top 10 ranking, even without any artifact mods helping it. At number 8, we have a Destiny Classic and Outbreak Perfected. Much like Polaris Lance, this thing deals great single target damage for a primary weapon. It stacks nanites on a target that allows you to ramp up your damage over time, and this effect gets even stronger with a fire team. And because it's a primary dealing loads of damage, you get your super back extremely quickly with it, and it allows you to save on special and heavy ammo, which is something that is super nice in something like solo Grandmasters. It is also a great swap exotic in stuff like Day 1 raids where you may be out of ammo and need to squeeze out just a little more boss damage. On top of this, it has nice ad clear as well, as crit kills will spread nanites to other enemies, damaging them and making them take more damage from Outbreak. And it is now better than ever because it has come back as a craftable exotic with Into the Light, so now you can put rewind rounds on it so you can lay on the trigger for even longer without having to reload. It is a very versatile weapon and well deserving of a spot in the top 10. At number 7 we have Vex mythoclast. This thing chews through ads even in high-end content. And then you can build up its linear fusion shots, which absolutely destroys champions. It hits harder than most heavy weapons in this mode, and it's a primary weapon. This added utility is great in things like Grandmaster Nightfalls to save on ammo, and it gives you a reliable ad clear weapon to boot. It doesn't see a ton of play because solar hasn't been featured in the artifact in a while, nor have fusion rifles, but even still, this weapon is a very strong pick. At number 6, we have a newcomer to the list, but a weapon that is as old as Destiny itself in the Kostov 7G-0X. This is the very first weapon that Guardians ever laid their hands on in the Destiny universe, and in the final shape it came back as an exotic weapon. It is an ad clear menace thanks to its intrinsic exotic perk The Right Choice, which gives every 7th bullet a ricochet. And if you collect orbs of power, your ricochets bounce off more targets and deal more damage. This makes it exceptional for ad clear, and it also has shoot to loot, which is a fan favorite perk for a lot of people, and this allows you to pick up orbs from a long distance, giving it nice utility. It is just a super fun weapon to use. You can just hold down the trigger and take out loads of enemies very quickly. Run a siphon mod and you will create orbs as you do so, which buffs the weapon even more, allowing you to clear ads even faster to make more orbs, and the loop continues. It's just a very well designed weapon that is as fun as it is powerful. Now onto the top 5, we have Graviton Lance. Speaking of weapons with great ad clear, this weapon can mow through ads. The Cosmology trait causes enemies to detonate and then it sends out void projectiles that can kill other ads. In lower end content, this can loop over and over to take out enormous amounts of ads with just one shot. It's crazy. And in higher end content, these 2-burst pulse rifles hit extremely hard, so it's great for chewing through red bars even in GMs. And then you get the added ad clear from the void projectiles. You can also pair it with a void or prismatic build to get volatile rounds for even more explosive destruction. It is getting a nerf to its rate of fire in the near future, but even still it will be very strong, but it will just deal slightly less DPS. It's a very strong weapon and well deserving of a top 5 placement. At number 4, we have a lot of people's favorite exotic in Sunshot. This weapon is an OG as it launched with D2 vanilla, and it's only gotten better with age. It is the only 150 RPM hand cannon in the game, and even legendary hand cannons hit like a truck. But being an exotic, this one hits for 30% more damage than the legendary counterparts to red bars. It also has explosive rounds which mitigates its damage fall off. But its biggest strength is the trait Sunblast, where defeated targets explode and deal scorch damage to nearby enemies. So it has solar synergy by providing scorch and can take out large waves of enemies very easily and even proc the odd ignition. This all pairs really well with Ember of Empyrean to extend things like Restoration and Radiant, making it even stronger for endgame builds. I have over 18,000 kills on my Sunshot, and for good reason. It can be brought into basically any activity and perform very well. It's just a monster of a weapon. At number 3 we have Wishender. Now you can easily make the case that Sunshot is better, and depending on the content that you're running, you would be correct. But Wishender shines in the type of content that I run most frequently, and that is Grandmaster Nightfalls. I like to solo GMs, and Wishender is a good pick in basically any GM that has barrier champs. It can pierce through barrier shields thanks to its intrinsic anti-barrier functionality, but it's not just against barrier champions where this shines. This is also useful against Hive Knight shields, Cabal Phalanx shields, Scorn Lurker shields, among other things. And you can't sleep on that kind of utility. Add in the fact that it's a bow, so you can hit for massive damage at great range, which is really helpful in GMs, especially for new players. Certain battleground strikes, it is best to take on the boss at a distance, and this will give you good consistent damage, while also giving you tons of super energy. I mentioned how Outbreak Perfected gives crazy super returns because it deals big damage for a primary. Well, Wishender triple penetrates targets, meaning each arrow is basically hitting the enemy 3 times. This results in very frequent supers, which is obviously very strong. For these reasons, Wishender is a top 3 primary weapon in the game, and it's a great example of how one sandbox change can make a weapon dominant. It wasn't used for years after Forsaken came out, other than for wall hacks and PvP, but Bungie reworked it a couple years back, and it's been a GM staple ever since. Before we get to the top 2, I want to mention some honorable mentions. I said at the top that this was the toughest list to make, and that is because there are so many amazing primary weapons. Last year, Quicksilver Storm was at the top of the list, but for various reasons, it didn't make this year's list. The nerf to how often it builds up grenades made it feel worse to use, and then coupled with the fact that the grenades deal a lot less damage now, it was enough to make it not really worth running anymore. Another primary weapon that was dominant for a long time was Osteostriga. It had amazing ad clear by spreading poison, but also great single target DPS as you could shoot an enemy to proc damage over time with it. This too allowed you to build up super energy like crazy, but Bungie implemented a 4-second cooldown on the spread of poison, which just makes it feel inconsistent and worse to use. It is still a great weapon, but the biggest nerf to it is honestly just Prismatic getting introduced in the final shape. We can now just spam abilities for ad clear, so why would you run an exotic whose main function is good ad clear? I know I contradict myself slightly by putting Kostov on this list, but the point still stands. We are in an ability-focused sandbox now, which has made good ad-clear weapons not really worth running. You'll notice that most of this list is therefore made up of primaries that hit really hard, but I want to shout out some other great primary weapons. Final Warning is a favorite of a lot of people because it hits very hard for a primary, and I like it a lot too, but my gripe with it is that it requires you to be too close in combat to get the most out of it. So yes, it can hit hard, but you often put yourself in harm's way to do so. A lot of the weapons on this list give you great damage at a far range, which to me is valuable. In that same vein, Tommy's Matchbook is an auto rifle that absolutely fries. It can destroy high health targets and trigger ignitions, but my problem with it is that it comes at the cost of your health. So for many people, they will die trying to get the most out of this weapon. Yes, you can build around this with Solar Restoration and that works very well, but the weapons on this list don't require a build around them to be good. They are just good in whatever content you want to use them. Sweet Business is another weapon that I personally love, but it doesn't quite make the list. Le Monarch, Wishkeeper, Hierarchy of Needs, Trinity Ghoul, and Tiku's Divination are all amazing weapons. Seriously, the exotic bows in this game slap. They're all good in the right scenarios, but I didn't include them here. Malfeasance is still good because it's a hand cannon, but it is best paired with Lucky Pants, and that interaction has been nerfed. Collective Obligation is super fun but quite build dependent, and Red Death Reformed is great for survivability. Deadman's Tail hits really hard with Vorpal Weapon and feels good to use, but the reload is kind of annoying even if it looks cool. And then you have weapons like Necrochasm, Teraba, the Huckleberry, and Trespasser, which can all mow down adds, but again, with the ability-centric sandbox we have, that role really isn't needed much anymore. But they are still powerful exotics. So yeah, this game has a ton of fun and powerful primary weapons, but I'm happy with my choices. So let's get back to the list. At the number 2 spot, we have a newcomer to the game from episode Revenant, Athum. This is a primary ammo breech-loaded grenade launcher, but what makes it so amazing is that it can create special and heavy ammo out of thin air. When used properly, this thing can absolutely dump out ammo for you and your teammates. Sure, they are only finder bricks, so it's not a ton of ammo, but you can manipulate this. You could shoot a champion over and over and just let it regen its health, and then you could keep stacking ammo bricks. I can't overstate how nice it is to have an option in the game that allows you to bypass the randomness of ammo drops in Destiny 2. Sometimes the game just doesn't drop you ammo, but this weapon gives you a way around that. That makes it very powerful. But it isn't just that. This thing also feels great to shoot. It reloads quickly, which is very important, and it hits hard on red bar adds, and is even decent on champions. And the Catalyst gives it one for all, making it even better for general ad clear. And finally, it even has the mountaintop physics where you can rocket jump with it. This gives it added utility and makes it very fun to use. My friend Ark was using it to rip through the swamp with ease on Lightblade, and doing the swamp solo can actually be pretty difficult. So not only is it fun, it is also helpful in certain situations. So yeah, this thing just brings a ton of utility to the table, while also providing pretty good damage overall. It's a very good exotic. And that brings us to our number 1 spot. Last year I ranked this 8th, but after playing with it more and more, I just think it is straight up the best primary in the game, and that is Revision 0. It has 2 fire modes, the 4-round burst and the 2-round burst. Personally, I prefer the 2-round burst as this mode hits extremely hard, making it great for taking out ads and high-end content like GMs. But in the 4-round burst, you can build up your sniper shots quicker, and it also builds things like rockets with hazardous propulsion even quicker. But for me, I like the consistency of the 2-round fire mode. But then when you do swap to the sniper mode, it hits like an absolute truck. Much like Vex mythoclast, it hits harder than most heavies, but this one has the added benefit of not needing a kill to build it up. You just need to hit crits. So this can theoretically do infinite damage if you have the time, which is perfect for a solo GM player like me. And another cool interaction is this works with Whisper of Rending because the sniper shot is still primary weapon damage, so it can deal some insane damage if you freeze the target and stack Radiant and stuff. It just has so much utility, and that utility is easy to take advantage of. I also run mine with 4 times the charm, so if I hit all my crits, I can actually shoot 6 sniper shots. And this also reduces the frequency with which we have to reload. And I run Vorpal Weapon, and this makes it even better for taking out champions and chewing through barrier shields, which it can handle intrinsically. For all these reasons, Revision 0 in my mind is the best primary weapon in the game. So let's recap. At 10 we have Verglas Curve, 9 Polaris Lance, 8 Outbreak Perfected, 7 Vex Mythoclast, 6 Kostov, 5 Graviton Lance, 4 Sunshot, 3 Wishender, 2 Athum, and in the number 1 spot we had Revision 0. And that is going to do it for the video. Let me know down below what you think of the list. It was hard to narrow it down to just 10 weapons, but I think I did a good job. If you liked this video, then hit the like button, and if you want to see more awesome Destiny 2 content, be sure to subscribe. I have the top 10 special and heavy weapon lists scheduled for the next couple days, so be sure to check those out when they drop. And if you're still here, thanks so much for watching to the end. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.